Hello, hello, got Tender Loving Care. Welcome everyone. Today we are going to react. I haven't seen this video yet. You're going to be able to hear some of the sound and hear my reaction. It's the worst places in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, famous for its cheese, beer, and football, and it's more than just a tailgater's dream. Badger State has rolling hills, thousands of beautiful lakes, and some big name universities. If you're from Wisconsin, you know it's a great state to call home, but not every city in America's Dairyland's a winner. So, in order to determine where the bad places are in Wisconsin, you got to look at a lot of stuff, like where the poverty is the highest, where the crime is bad, and where the schools are bad, and where it's just outright ghetto. Those are the things we're going to measure. Plus, I looked at all the comments from the last video I did and took that into account too. Because you people in Wisconsin, you know where the bad places are, right? So while the ice cream sundae was invented in Wisconsin, certainly nothing sweet about the places we're going to talk about. Let's get going, shall we?
Okay. Yeah, those are all stereotypical things.
Stop in New London, located in the central part of the state and home to just under 7,000 people. New London's a popular destination for fishing, tubing, and camping. Seems like a great place to live. You like that small town feel. They made our list for a reason. The economy here isn't too bad. The unemployment rate's just about 5%. The town has an affordable cost of living. It's a typical small town in Wisconsin. Lots of farms, land, clubs, and bars. People here are generally really nice. However, the median income stands.
I've worked in this place, and it just seemed like a very small town. Wisconsin is known for, oh my goodness, if you look at Milwaukee, bars, and there were churches on every corner. So rooting for the good places, but that's what it is.
About 48K, and 13% of people that live in below poverty.
So this place, New London, is similar to South Milwaukee. It looks like South Milwaukee.
Additionally, the town falls short when it comes to housing and diversity. I mean, honestly, if this is the 10th worst place to live in Wisconsin, that means Wisconsin's pretty awesome. I'll tell you that. So what are some of the perks?
Well, it depends on what demographic you are. Milwaukee is one of the most segregated, top three, if not number one segregated place. So these places have a lot of those places have a lot of drug issues, and as you know, this person said, they're known for cheese, alcohol, and football. So football and alcohol are part and parcel. I mean, you have one of the basketball or the baseball team, the Brewers, that's alcohol. So unemployment rates, and you look at the car um, thefts and all those violent things. I think that that place has a lot of potential being in the Midwest, but it's also very backwards.
Thing in New London, well, if you're Irish, you fit right in. The city has the largest St. Patrick's Day parade in the state with week-long festivities, and even changed the city's name to New Dublin for the week. You know, people in Wisconsin love good drink. We're taking a lot.
Yeah, too much. It's too much of a problem. Like drinking the alcohol is way too much of a problem.
Drive north to reach number 9, Ashland, located at the top of the state on Lake Superior. About 8,000 people call Ashland home. The town has some charm and summers here.
Never been to, or maybe I have been to Ashland, but never resided in Ashland. North of New London, so familiar with that area work-wise.
Beautiful. The rest of the year is pretty miserable with brutally cold days and fake effects snow. Folks living way up here don't earn much, have trouble getting jobs. The median income is just $38,000. Nearly 5% of people are out of work, and 1 in 5 residents live below the poverty line. Then there's
1 in 4 residents below the poverty line. Man, thank you.
The city also had 21 aggravated assaults over the course of the last year. Seems pretty high for such a small place. People living here complain that drugs are a growing issue. There's nowhere to shop except Walmart. The local businesses have a hard time providing. That's not fine. But at least the public schools here are decent. The students teach to ratio and amount spent per student are bright spot. The graduation rate above state average. So maybe there's hope for the next generation up here, and maybe people will just pack up and leave, like a lot of other people. And number 8, travel to the southeastern part of the state.
So now we're going somewhere more familiar. Brown Deer, have family friends live there, near Milwaukee, if not in Milwaukee. I don't really like that area much. Those are all places that trouble and problems follow you. I know that Brown Deer is close to that mall. Let me see if I remember. It's a Bayshore. I say Bayshore. It's Mayfair Mall, but it's not Mayfair Mall. Another problematic area. Bayshore is the mall. Yeah, that's not a good mall. A lot of violence. Too many young kids wasting their parents' money, drug money. It's not good. I worked there. Live near there. And a lot of these places can benefit from more clinics, more doctors coming through, more medical meccas. A lot more green parks and farmers and land. But yeah, this is another area that's problematic, and it's considered a north side edition. The north side is very wrecked.
And Brown Deer, a suburb of Milwaukee, a lot of people probably haven't even heard of Brown Deer. About 12,000 people call this place home. Now, at first glance, Brown Deer seems like a great place to live. The location's ideal.
No, well, maybe on the map it seems like a good place to live because it's close to, somewhat close to Lake Michigan, but it's not. It's very small town, very violent, segregated. Don't confuse diversity for black and white. And then in the kitchen you got Mexicans. It's not diversity. And it's not very affluent either. So while it is close to Lake Michigan, it's a very impoverished, violent location. So Brown Deer is not a good area to be.
You're located on Lake Michigan, and it's just a 15-minute drive to downtown. It's affordable, diverse. The unemployment rate's above.
No, it's not diverse because everyone's poor. When you have black and white that's poor and fighting each other, that's not diverse, that's monochrome. Now, when you talk about diversity, now we're talking about multiculturalism, multilingualism, and affluency. It's not about the haves and the have-nots. That's not true equity and diversity. What you do have is you have like maybe a block or two away, a few minute drive to Whitefish Bay, Shorewood, and those are in those places you have like 1 or 2 or 3 affluent neighborhoods, and then everyone else the have-nots. So there's so much segregation. So this person's confusing diversity with segregation. What you do have is some ethnic enclaves, but everyone's fighting each other and everyone's poor.
But it's not terrible. They have some beautiful parks, but
and what you do have is some golf courses. You have some parks that aren't cared for. There could be a lot more gardens and mini farms, and it's a concrete jungle. So it isn't, the parks have potential, but they are definitely far from beautiful.
For inspection, you don't want to plant roots here. That's because Brown Deer is the second most dangerous place in the state.
There we go. I'm not surprised by that. I didn't know that. It's the second most. But I know that Milwaukee, like this Brown Deer is part of Milwaukee. And Milwaukee is fighting against Detroit for the #1 spot of the most segregated, violent city north of Chirac. So Brown Deer being #2 for most violent. I didn't know that. Oh my goodness.
Rate is way above the national average. People living here have a 1 in 26 chance being a victim of property crime every year they live here. Oh, and a car gets stolen here like every other week too. So make sure you lock your doors and have.
Yeah. When I last went to Milwaukee, family and I went to that Milwaukee Zoo, and this is all close. Like this is all minute drive to each other. Bus transit system, ride. And what was the conversation like? Waiting in the lines. Something about some boys, a little gang that goes around stealing was it Honda boys or some shit like that. So pardon my French. But I did learn a lot of this vernacular from that location. Um, yeah, the car rates are, and as someone who's worked in that area, I went around the entire town cleaning up, picking up on my students from the inner city neighborhoods because I am, someone for social justice, socially conscious community, caring for ourselves. And I had students from that, from their own neighborhoods, clean up their own neighborhoods. And one of the students, because I had students create ethnographic documentaries documenting, well, what is it like in your neighborhood? Tell me from your perspective instead of having the news share everyone's story. And the students did that. And one of the students, a mixed student, I'll say, because it's not, don't blame one color or another. This is a student who had, a mom of one race and a dad of another race, who created an ethnographic documentary of a car robbing. Someone was surrounded. So, sometimes you think that you're prepared for those situations, but remember, you hope for the best and prepare for the worst. What this student showed me with the footage that they were able to gather in their neighborhood, what had recently gone on and happened, is that a bunch of lunatics, a bunch of teenagers and grown adults surrounded one vehicle. So a bunch of people surrounded one vehicle, and they very, very, very violently threw the person out of the vehicle, beat them with a gun, and stole their car. So it's not just, get out the car, I'm going to take it. Here's a gun if you try to fight. No, the person was getting out the car because they had seen them, and then they got beat. They got pulverized into the cement. So one of my students is showing me her documentary. This is a young female. And she shared her story with the entire class. And this was somewhere right outside of the Urban Ecology Center. So this person, like me, I had volunteered at that place, at the Urban Ecology Center, volunteer, free service, to build up the community. They're getting into the vehicle, and all of a sudden they end up being pulverized into the cement because in those neighborhoods, they, the same players of the Call of Duty gamers, the Grand Theft Auto, they find that fun. And for I'm not gonna say I didn't find that fun. I played those games, but once I came into fruition, I realized I got to get the fuck out of these games. This is only anthropology, and I never did any of that. Kept my head in martial arts, and I do grant that I trained with people who, if you want to go to war, they'll be ready. But sometimes, like that person getting out of their car, you might be ready for one or two, but when it's an entire one or two vehicles approaching you, and then you got about 7, 11, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people trying to rob you for one car, then it becomes a war zone. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Brown Deer, those places are war zones.
Lock your picnic basket if you're spending a day at Brown Deer Park. The schools here are okay. They're not great. About half the kids get free or reduced lunch, and that's sad. The graduation rate's 95%, but state testing paints a different picture. Only about 16% of the high school kids here are proficient in reading and math. Come on, Brown Deer kids, study. But people rant and rave about the tight-knit community here. That has to count for something, right? So it can't be terrible. It's Wisconsin.
Well, the tight knit community is due because they're a bunch of gangs, and everyone, when it comes down to it, they want to claim their hood, so they rep it, but they're not doing much about it. The one positive that I can share is the free schooling, like the free lunches for many people. It better be free because the quality of education isn't really that high.
Moving south, we come to Janesville in Rock County for the first time, and not the last time. Janesville is challenged in many ways, people,
Adversity.
with poverty, drugs, and crime. A lot of folks say it's kind of a terrible place to live in a lot of Janesville. Much of Rock County should be avoided for families moving to the state. A lot of the feds moving up here from Illinois, coming up here for the increase in welfare bennies, and Janesville is one of the places they land.
Oh my goodness. This person mentioned welfare pennies. I believe it. There's a lot of that going on, unfortunately. Learning about Janesville, not much familiar with it. So let's keep on listening and researching.
Can you imagine that? Low lives moving up here from Illinois just to get more welfare money. Janesville is also more dangerous than all but 5% of the rest of the state. There's that. Besides crime levels, schools here are lousy. There's not much to do, but can't blame them for that. It is Wisconsin, right? At number 6, Wisconsin Rapids, located in the middle of the state along the Wisconsin River. Nearly 18,000 people call this place home. The name of the town makes it sound a lot cooler than it actually is. Wisconsin Rapids is a manufacturing town that has struggled with the loss of jobs and a weak economy. 1 in 20 residents refuse to work here, people. Almost 1 in 5 live below the poverty line, and home values are among some of the worst in the state. For such a small town, Wisconsin Rapids has a major crime problem. The crime rate runs more than 32% above the national average, although it's more of a property crime. Folks living here have a 1 in 32 chance of having their stuff stolen every single year. There's also a growing opioid problem here, which is just how it is in these days in small town America, sadly. People can't put the pipes down for one day and get serious about themselves. People living here complain that schools aren't great. There's not much to do. There's a lot of empty shops, and the paper mill in town smells awful. That sucks. Maybe it's all the meth they're making up here in Wisconsin Rapids. But there's always going to be perks to living here. The area is home to some of the largest cranberry marshes in the county, and a new aquatic center just opened, and that looks fantastic for families. Good for you, Wisconsin Rapids, on that one. We're going to drive an hour and 15 minutes south to find number 5, Portage. The town's located at the split of the Wisconsin and Fox rivers, and it's home to just about 10,000 people. While the views of the river are nice, there's not much to love about living in Portage. The town has a sluggish economy. A bunch of people can't find jobs or have stopped trying. 1 in every 8 homes is near the poverty line, and the median income here is just above $45K. On top of that, there's a lack of diversity. There's concerns about housing and mediocre schools. People living here complain about all the vacant businesses. They say there's not much to do in the winter, and there's a growing drug problem here as well.
Yeah, that's very problematic. Is that there's not only the drug problem, the illegal drugs, but the legal drugs like the alcohol. There's a bar on almost every corner, and the celebration of alcohol in those places is ridiculous. While they should be celebrating medicine, the water, living near Lake Michigan, fresh water source, and education, medicine, and language and communication, and building their diversity. But it's not. They celebrate the alcohol and the drugs, and that's a major problem. Is that they celebrate that, but that's a culture of celebrating those paraphernalia. That's not good.
At least the town's trying. They've revitalized the downtown area, and they've cleaned up the Portage Canal, and they opened up a new bike path. Awesome, Portage. Keep trying. At number 4, we travel to the coast again.
I've biked almost this entire state. And it's okay, but like people say, you do that for about 1 or 2 months in the summer, and then it's cold again.
To Racine, which is south of Milwaukee. Don't laugh, Kenosha. You're not much better. 77,000 people.
Yeah, Kenosha is right next to Racine. And like I said, very close to South Milwaukee.
Call Racine home, but there's a lot of people leaving this place. The first garbage disposal was manufactured here, and it seems fitting because this place is trash. Oh, snap. Racine was once called the most affordable place to live in the world, which is probably good because it's home to some of the laziest people in the state. Seriously, 1 in 16 people are without jobs. 1 in 5 are chronically on food stamps. And of course, home values are going to be some of the lowest around. The schools here aren't great either. They're lacking funding, and there's no real hope in sight. And the student enrollment, which drives revenue, is going down. Like, seriously, they're losing about 500 kids in the near future here in the scene. Can't blame them for leaving. This place is pretty lousy. Hopefully, some of them will move back down to Illinois where they came from, but at least Racine High School students can still look forward to the mega prom. And number 3, Anago, a small farming and manufacturing community in north central Wisconsin. Just about 8,000 people call Anago home. The town is really a shell of its former self. These days, Anago is struggling with everything. This town has the worst unemployment rate in the state at 10%, which is super high for Wisconsin. 20% of folks here live in poverty, And unsurprisingly, Anago has the worst home values in Wisconsin. We can get a house for about $87,000, but we would want to move out here these days. Sorry to say. On top of that, the crime rate here is double the national average. What the heck is going on in little Anago? Folks living here have a 1 in 22 chance of being the victim of property crime. Every year they call Anago home. So lock your doors here, people.
Well, a lot of what's going on is that when I say this term, I question it, police brutality. And it's not police doing the brutality to people. When I say it, I mean that people are abusive to the police. And I'm by far against police state, but my experience in Wisconsin and even Illinois, is that there's a culture of, well, what's that song? Hip hop song. I haven't listened, I made hip hop music back in the day, and then the NWA song with Ice Cube, yeah, there you go, that song. There's a culture of that. And when there's a culture of that, then what you get is, police officers that are doing their best, but they're not the most motivated to build, community with people who don't want to build community with them. I feel that there should be more support for police, more mental health supports, more appreciation. I grew up in the hood, and a lot of the police officers went to our schools and spoke to us as kids. And I feel that, as community ambassadors, that police officers and an entire department of security is a large part of the community. But what you have in those places is that it's cool, quote unquote cool, to fight the police when it's really not. Police are there to protect, and if you're ever in trouble, regardless of who you are, these are people who protect. So I feel that if there's more police appreciation, you have more people who, instead of doing bad things, would either, support.
The public schools here aren't great. 12% of adults never finish high school. There's a growing drug problem in the community, and there aren't great restaurants here. At least that's what the hungry people here complain about. A perk, there's plenty to do outdoors, from hunting, fishing, to swimming, and snowmobiling. So there's that. But overall, one resident put it best: if you like fast food, Walmart, and meth, Anago is a place for you. At number 2, Milwaukee, the MLK, Milwaukee, the Mill. I'm sure you're like, what's worse than Milwaukee? The Brew City is home to nearly 600,000 people. It's the biggest city in Wisconsin, and with that comes the perks of big city life. Professional sports teams, museums, restaurants, and shops, as well as big city problems. Milwaukee's population peaked in 1960, and now it's down about 16%, although it seems like the population loss has stabilized. But they lost a lot of factory jobs and a lot of trash from Chicago moving in. Sure, there's lots of Milwaukee that's super cool, but there's a big part of town that's terrible. There are parts of town that a lot of people might call it dumb. There's quite a few large pockets of super bad and super poor, especially in the area near Northwest side, like Williamsburg Heights. Milwaukee starts to get really bad the further you get from downtown until around Hampton Avenue. Sadly, this pocket's where most of the crime occurs, and it's most of the reason why Milwaukee gets such a bad rap. Nearly 7% of people living here can't find a job or aren't trying. 1 in 4 people is living in poverty, and the public schools and housing are also a concern. 17% of adults in Milwaukee never finished high school. 17% in a major city like Milwaukee. But the real problem is crime. It's the most violent city in the state, and according to the FBI, it's number 6 in the country for dangerous big cities. Folks living here have a 1 in 75 chance of being the victim of a murder, rape, robbery, or assault over the course of 1 year. And while property crime isn't as bad as the violent crime, Milwaukee has the highest burglary rate in the state too, averaging about 10 a day. People living here say while it's a diverse city, it's segregated and racial discrimination is an issue. As you would expect, drugs are also a huge problem here, and the public transportation is terrible, but a lot of people who ride the bus don't work, so it seems like they're trying here. Milwaukee's been cleaning up the bad areas and cracking down on crime, and unlike other Midwest cities which lost jobs, they've worked hard to diversify this economy. Apparently, there's a sense of optimism in the area. Good. but it's not very optimistic in the worst place you can live in the state of Wisconsin. That would be, of course, Beloit, located an hour south of Madison, over here in Rock County again. About 37,000 people call Beloit home, but they probably wish they didn't. They call it Detroit for a reason. It's economically depressed and trashed. Lots of gunshots, lots of drug use, and more Illinois thieves up here collecting all those pennies. The unemployment rate here is through the roof. 1 in 10 people won't work, and 1 in 4 of them lives in poverty. That's because 1 out of every 6 kids here never finishes high school. Beloit has the 4th lowest home prices in the state. We can get a house for $89,000. You can see there's not much demand to live here. Then there's the crime. Beloit ranks in the top 10 statewide for both violent and property crime, but you probably knew that already. The city has the 6th highest murder rate in Wisconsin, and residents have a 1 in 240 chance of being violently attacked over the course of a year. 1 in 240 chance. Of course, you're going to want to watch your wallet when you're walking around the town's farmer market, because last year there were 921 larceny cases, 122 burglaries, and 71 stolen cars. What the hell? People living here say Beloit has terrible drivers, the town's dirty, there's not much to do, and of course, drugs are everywhere. But Beloit has won awards for its downtown Main Street. Maybe that's worth a stroll. Just watch your back, I guess. So there you have it. The worst cities live in Wisconsin. These are all places in the state where crime is super high, we're broke, schools are kind of bad, and where drugs are out of control. Now, if you look at some of the best places to live in the Badger State, it's going to be places like Fox Point, Whitefish Bay, Elm Grove, Cedarburg, many of the Milwaukee suburbs, which are all winning at the things that really matter: cost of living, safety, education, and jobs. So if you value those things, move to one of those places, not in the ones we talked about earlier. And if you already live in one of the best places, grab yourself a brick of cheese and a beer and celebrate out on the lake, because you're Wisconsin gold, I tell you. Gold. Cheese and cows and bratwurst, funny accents, blizzards. Cheese and cows and bratwurst, funny accents, blizzards. Beer and brats and pretzels, Packers fans and dumb hats. Beer and brats and pretzels, Packers fans and dumb hats. Move to Wisconsin and you'll hate it. There's a lot of boring stuff. Not a lot of fun. Move to Wisconsin and you'll hate it. There's a lot of boring stuff. Not a lot of fun. Their quarterback has a funny mustache. There's a lot of Brewers fans too. People here wear tiny shorts, and they have a lot of pretty lakes, and it's cold. Everybody here ice fishes. If you want to come, then you better not forget your pole. Everybody here ice fishes. If you want to come, then you better not forget your pole. Everybody here ice fishes. If you want to come, then you better not forget your pole. Everybody here ice fishes. If you want to come, then you better not forget your pole. Bam! Bam! Wisconsin! Bam!
All right, so I'm gonna mute it there. That was the video that we are reviewing and reacting to. So yeah, those awards that were mentioned in the video, they don't mean anything. Anyone can create an award for whatever. All the congratulations, have yourself a cheese at whatever at the Lake Michigan. Well, you're a block away from hazard and disaster. So that those places that are quote unquote prestigious are going to get an awards, and I feel that they aren't true awards because not the entire community isn't represented. And you only have 1 block or 2 blocks of Whitefish Bay, a little community, and everything else around it is danger and chaos, then it really means nothing to live in Whitefish Bay. All that means is that you live in 1 block, that's okay, but everything else around you, you drive 5 minutes left, right, north, south, east, west, and then everything else is a barrage of chaos. So Whitefish Bay, I know that they got their awards for being okay, as juxtaposed to everywhere else in that area. But it really doesn't mean nothing. They have to build up the community. And there just have to be more opportunities. So there you go.